Paul says in Romans 1:21 through 22 that even though people knew God, their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. And he's not saying that people lose their intelligence, but it's more like their reasoning gets twisted and turned inward. So they start defending whatever pulls them away from the truth, and they might call themselves wise, but underneath it's just confusion. Jeremiah 17:9 calls hearts deceitful above all things. And it shows a picture of something that's inside of us that's out of sync. And it's something that you can't trust. So when your perception is off, you end up lost without even realizing it. Isaiah 59:2 points out, your iniquities have separated you from your God. So that's not just about circumstances, but it's about relationships. And depravity fallout isn't about punishment, but it's usually about the natural result, about drifting away. And Genesis 3 makes this clear in the story about the fall. It's about people pointing fingers, fear taking over where connection used to be, and relationships breaking down. So the real tragedy isn't about death arriving, but it's the loss of harmony with God and ourselves and the world around us. Scripture keeps coming back to this idea that depravity isn't just about what we do, but it's rooted in the heart. So Jeremiah 17:9 says, the heart is deceitful above all things. David in Psalm 51 admits he's been sinful since birth. Ecclesiastes 9:3 says, the hearts of the children of man are full of evil. So this isn't about actions, but it's about a deep inward pulling away from God. This is not rare. This is universal, and this is everyone. Psalm 14 says, there is none who does good. Isaiah 53:6 says, all we like sheep have gone astray. Romans 3:23 says, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So that's why grace is so necessary. Scripture ties depravity to spiritual death and separation from God. It's relational and moral at the same time. So depravity shapes how we stand before God and how we treat each other. In Isaiah 5:20, the prophet says, woe to those who call evil good and good evil. At this point, depravity doesn't hide anymore. It's right there in the open. And people talk about it like it's normal. And you see the same thing in Romans 1:28 through 32. Paul doesn't just talk about people doing wrong, but he points out how people actually cheer each other on in their wrongdoing. And minds get twisted and bad behavior just spreads. And suddenly everyone is going along with it. So this shift matters. It's not just about people joining in, but it's about giving the thumbs up. And what used to bother the conscience is now getting written into the culture. When you look at scripture, God's will is described in some pretty strong terms. Good, acceptable, perfect. And that's Romans 12:2. Just and righteous. And that's Deuteronomy 32:4. Life-giving, Ezekiel 18:32. So when a culture starts normalizing depravity, it doesn't topple God's sovereign will, but it does reject what he's clearly laid out as right. Take 1 Samuel 8, for example. Israel wanted a king like everyone else. Sure, it made sense in the world, but spiritually it missed the mark. What started off as a warning turned into a demand. And social pressure took over where trust in the covenant used to be. The scripture warns about a state where people will lose their grip on reality. What looks solid is actually fragile. Isaiah 5:20 talks about flipping good and evil. Jeremiah 6:14 describes people crying, peace, peace, when there is no peace at all. In biblical terms, illusion is not just a daydream. So it's trust put in the wrong place. It's like building your house on sand instead of rock, and that's Matthew 7:24. Look in the Bible, the word binding can mean a couple things. So it's bondage to sin, and that's John 8:34. but it's also about being bound in the covenant. And that's Ecclesiastes 4:12. So in Matthew 16:19, when Jesus talks about binding and loosing, he's talking about the real authority, and that matches heaven. So when something is being bound to truth, it has real lasting weight. So the real question is, what are we binding? If we let illusion tie our hearts, it traps us. But if we let truth hold us together, we're anchored. And scripture teaches us whatever is rooted in God lasts. And that's John 2:17. So illusion fades away, but what is righteous remains.